All right, we are live once again. Let me get the Amazon one going here. And we will kick things off. So today, we're looking at this thing, but this came in also, so I figured I would kind of kill two birds with one stone. And hang on, my Amazon thing is all screwed up here. There we go. So today what we're going to be doing is taking a look at a NAS that we haven't looked at, a brand that we haven't looked at in a while. This is the Buffalo High Performance. Yeah, there we go, YouTube's going. Buffalo High Performance NAS. This is their Linkstation 720, and it supports 2.5 gigabit networks. So this came in from the company free of charge and full disclosure. They're not coordinating anything here. They just send stuff to review like everybody else does. And this I bought because you can't have enough switches. And this one's kind of neat. It's a 10 gig and 2.5 gig switch. And this is a 2.5 gig network attached storage device. And this one is, depending on how you configure it, a 2 terabyte or a 4 terabyte, because if you run it in RAID 1, which is mirrored, you get the same content on both drives. It kind of duplicates both of them. You could also run it in what they call scary RAID, RAID 0, where it just uses the full aggregate capacity, but I never recommend doing that. So what's neat about the Buffalo ones is that they are simpler than the QNAPs and the Synologies. They are pretty much just storage. They do have some streaming of media and whatnot, but they're not going to have all the server functions and all the other stuff that gets you into trouble with the other ones. And I don't even know if these are accessible remotely, so we'll experiment with that as we work our way through here. What you can do with these is sync them to up to the cloud, and they have a cloud service also. But yeah, I don't think these work remotely. And these days, it's actually kind of a feature that it doesn't work remotely, but we'll double check that. It does support UPnP, which always makes me nervous. I do not like UPnP at all, but we'll take a look as we barge into this thing and see what's going on. And I want to say hello to some friends who have joined us. Eric's Variety Channel is here. Thank you for your support of the St. Jude fundraiser, Eric. That was very nice of you. Michael Kidd says this is his area of expertise. Awesome. So I will be looking for your expertise. He only has 192 terabytes of main storage in his RV. So what does your house have if you have 192 terabytes in the RV? That's a lot. I have a chocolate Hershey Kiss here, which I'm my last one. I devour these things if I'm not careful. The Skulls playlist is here. Yeah, so I don't think you're going to add a lot of apps to this one. We'll check and see what you can add. I don't think you can put Plex on it. It's a much simpler device, and it also costs less. So there you go. I'm eating a chocolate Kiss. Hang on. I should have eaten it before I started. Oh, so Michael travels the country full time. That's awesome. So that's it. So you got everything you need with you. You don't even need the internet, because it's all just in the RV with you. So there you go. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is unbox the switch, because we're going to plug this thing into the switch. So we'll get to this in a second. And this is a dumb switch. So all it does is move packets around. And again, we've got 2 10 gig and 4 2.5 gigs. I actually got this because here's why I got this. So remember that gigabit Ethernet or the multi-gigabit network connection I got from Comcast? So it turns out they're going to be expanding the bandwidth. So when I got it initially, it was 2 gigabits over the SFP connector, and now they're going to 3. And so my network upstairs was limited to 2 gigabits because I had a 2.5 switch. So to get the full bandwidth out of my kitchen perch up there where I sit in the kitchen with my MacBook, I have to upgrade the switch. So what we're going to do is so we're going to run 10 gigs out to my main switch here, and then I'm going to plug the MacBook into this port. So I'll get the Mac's internet connection, and then I still have some more ports available. So I'm not using much on that. I have my wireless access point over there, and that's pretty much it. So, but today we're going to use it to demo this. And let's see, we got Grant Barry is here from Australia. Good day. I guess it's probably the evening over there now. Nick MG is here. Good to see you again. This one has 4 terabytes, but we're only going to have 2 accessible because we're going to configure it as RAID 1. And Eric has 6 terabytes, and he's got a homemade NAS. All right, so let's get this thing out on the desk. And have you ever watched that guy that opens up the MREs? He goes, nice. Yeah, so we're going to give the upstairs kitchen connection a little more of a boost when I hook this thing up permanently. But I thought this was nice. It was priced right. So this, I don't know what the price is on this because it's like going in and out of stock. I'll have to look at what I paid for it, but it wasn't that expensive. So Grant is up late or early, depending on your perspective. But hopefully everything is going well in Australia. I guess there was an earthquake there yesterday, right? All right, so we're going to power this thing on. And this will boot up quickly because it's just kind of an appliance. It's a unmanaged switch. And what I'm going to do is just connect my network here to this port because that way I can get everything on the same network. So this will get all of my devices that I plug into it, an IP and all that good stuff. All right, so now we got the network configured. So let us unbox this. Hang on a second. Hang on one second. Sorry, everybody. I was muted because my wife came downstairs. So I'm back. All right. So there we go. And Mark Smith says, hub or switch. This is a switch. It's a unmanaged switch, so it's just a packet pusher, so it doesn't do any managed activities. And we need to take off the tape here to get into it, because we have to take the padding out, they said, before we can get going here. So that tape is on there pretty good. All right, pull that off, and then we got to open this door up here. And I'm not sure how this door opens up. Oh, there it goes. Okay. All right, so there's a piece of styrofoam padding in there to keep the drives from knocking together, because there's a bit of a space between the drives here. And you know what we'll do now is we will pull the drives out. Let's see, how do we pull the drives out? What, some kind of locking mechanism or something? Let's see. I always like to see what kind of hard drives they pick in these things. It looks like they're Seagates, but it's hard to tell. I'm trying to see how they're secured in there. Because one of the things I like to do is pop the drives out to see how easy it is to swap drives. Because typically what happens with these 2-drive units, and I just had this happen with my WD MyCloud NAS. You know, eventually one of the drives is going to fail. And if you have this running in a mirrored configuration, it will automatically just allow you to pop one out and put in a new one, which is really helpful. So I'm just trying to see in the instructions here. I don't want to force anything, so I'm just trying to see if there's a way to easily eject these drives. But I don't see anything there. And I'm trying not to break anything, because it really doesn't want to come out. So I don't want to force it. So let me look up how to, let's see, this is a Linkstation 720, and let's see if we can look at how to remove the hard drive. So it looks like there might be a video on Buffalo's. I can't show you this right now because it's on my laptop. Squeeze the left side of the front panel and pull the panel off, which we did. It looks like you just give it a good yank. All right. Okay, so we have to just give it a good yank here to pull it out. There it goes. Okay. Oh, these are Seagates. So, you know, these are Barracuda drives, but I don't think these are NAS rated drives because they're green. Hang on, let's pull up, I'm just going to start my notes also for this. Because I am typically of the opinion that you should put NAS drives in a NAS, and the reason is they're better suited for that activity, but I could be mistaken. But I'm pretty sure that Seagate's NAS drives are called Iron Wolves. So let me go and look at Seagate Barracuda compute drives. And let's see, Seagate Barracuda compute. And this is one of those things where they kind of try to hit the price point, right? So I'm just looking to see. I've not been following the Seagate product line lately. So let me just take a quick look at something real quick. Yeah, so it looks like green is a PC solution from Seagate. And then Iron Wolf, the red, is what you want for NAS. So these are not NAS-rated drives. So I would be cautious about that. All right, hang on one second here. Okay, so, oh, Danielle lost audio as I was, yes, my wife had come down for the car keys because we had something for the kids in the car. Eric is having trouble renewing his membership. Is that through the YouTube thing? Yeah, I see that you like always pop back on as a renewal. So I'm not sure I can help on that, unfortunately. The power, what kind of power does it use? Well, let's take a look. This is the power adapter here. This is a 12 volt, 3 amp power supply. What is that in watts? I'll let one of you figure out the wattage on that. What is that, about 30 something watts? Flood of Sins is here. And there's some agreement that the Iron Wolf drives are definitely the NAS ones. Right, that's what I saw on their website also. Now Michael says with only 2 drives, it's unnecessary for a NAS-rated drive. Yeah, I do think that, you know, one of the things that I like about the NAS disks is that aren't they a little bit more robust than typical drives? And actually, this brings up that maybe this is why they chose these, because there was a dispute or a debate or a controversy over the fact that some of the WD Reds are now more like desktop drives than NAS drives anyhow, so what difference does it make? I'm going to ask them about the choice of drives here. Because I've always just, you know, it's for safety reasons, or, you know, I've always just kind of went with the NAS-rated drives for a NAS. And they typically have a longer warranty also. Although this unit has a 2-year warranty on it. All right, we're going to slide that back in. All right, and we're going to put the little cover back on here. This kind of goes on like that. So it's a, you know, it's a nice unit. It, you know, it's definitely smaller than what you typically see from QNAP and WD and everybody. And there's some stuff in the back here. Oh, there's actually a power switch here. I'll show you the back of it. So on the front, we've got a USB 3 port, and I'm guessing that's something you can use to install, you know, bring photos in and stuff. On the back, we got our 2.5 gig Ethernet, a USB 2.0, a USB 3.0, and a power switch. And then it's got a Kensington lock back there. And I think you're going to be seeing more and more 2.5 gig stuff make its way out there. 2.5 is not that expensive comparatively to 1 gig, and it's getting less expensive all the time. I have found, though, it makes my network a little more complicated because my UniFi gear doesn't like 2.5 gigabit connections for some reason. So that's been a little flaky. All right, so we're going to plug in. Yeah, the connectors are these little white connectors on these things. Plug that in here. All right, so now we're powered up, and let's throw the switch. There it goes. Now the fan comes on super strong when you first boot it, and then it'll settle down after it gets loaded up. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we are going to bring in my pluggable 2.5 gig Ethernet connector. And why that is important is because, and actually I'm going to start my vMix thing now. You know, I'm just thinking out loud here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug this thing and plug in this thing. I'm just going to get my screen shared with all of you so you can see what I'm working on here. And let's plug this in. And I'm just going to plug in the pluggable Ethernet adapter. And this is a 2.5 gig Ethernet adapter. See, it says 2.5G on there. So we should be able to get the most out of it. Roger P. is joining us on Amazon. Hello there, Roger P. And we are first booting up here. Mark Smith wants to know, which drives do I typically use? I have typically gone with the WD Reds, although the NAS I'm using now is the one that we reviewed a while back. It's that fireproof one that came in from, I forgot the name of the company, the one that makes the fireproof NAS devices. So that's the one I've been using personally, and that one had a bunch of Iron Wolves in it. All right, so we're going to plug in the 2.5 gig there. And now we've got my computer connected, and I'm just going to bring in my video now. And what we're going to have to do is connect to the NAS here. Roger P wants to know, does this switch do 10 gig? Yes, so this one has two 10 gig ports, and then it's got four 2.5 gig ports on it. All right. And Michael Kidd is not kidding around. He's got Exos Enterprise going on his setup there. And we're still waiting for it to boot here. You see that the power is blinking, and that's just because it's booting up its operating system. So we will wait patiently. I've got two green lights on my 2.5 gig switches here, which indicates that we have successfully connected at 2.5 gig. All right, so now we're just going to wait this out here until this thing boots up. And it's settling down now. The fan has settled down. And let's go back to those instructions, the quick setup guide. We flipped it on, and then we're going to go to a special little URL. So they've got like a little connection that we can make to it. So let me get my screen set up here. And bear with me for 1 second, folks. I'm just going to get recombobulated. So I'm going to turn on screen mirroring. And then we're going to do one of these deals. Okay, so I'm going to go to d.buffalo, and I'll show you what I'm doing here in a second. .jp. So Buffalo is a Japanese company, by the way. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe these drives are, yeah, look at that. I believe these drives, I have to accept the software agreement. Do I have to download software or no? So the download, oh, it's a Navigator software, so let's grab the Navigator. So I believe these drives are made, or these NAS devices are made in Japan. And then it's pointing me at the App Store on the Mac, so let me just do that real quick. It's called the NAS Navigator. And I'm guessing this is what you need to configure it. Although what I am going to try, because I have that Unify equipment, I can very quickly get the URL of the device here. So I think that's what I'm going to try first. Because if I don't have to install software, I prefer not to. I'm not a big fan of software installation. Yeah, let's try that. So bear with me here for a second. So we're going to try to figure out what the IP address is. Roger P says, can you put games on a NAS? You can. It depends on the game. Like if you're emulating, sure, that would work fine. But a lot of games really look for faster connections. And if you're even at 2.5 gigabit, you're still a lot slower than an NVMe SSD would be in your computer locally. All right, bear with me, folks. I got to find my Unify app. I just upgraded my phone to iOS 15, and it's working okay. But it's not always finding my apps when I try to run them. And I've got like miles of apps in my thing here, and I have no idea where the darn, there it is. Okay, let's load it up here. Okay. So let's go over to my devices here. And there it is. So it is at 2.43. So let's see if I can connect to it that way. Yeah, here we go. So, and it wants me to enter in a password. So let me do that real quick. And once that's done, I'll show you the rest of the setup screen here. So you can download the software, but I think if you can get its IP address, just do it the way I'm doing it. Because I just don't like to install software that's not necessary. Because a lot of times they just stay resident on your computer, and there's just no reason for that. I'm going to set my time zone. And we'll wait for that to save. And I'll take some questions here while we're waiting. MSX Droid is here. Hello, MSX Droid. Good to see you. All right, we'll see what happens here. William says that, yeah, you should be fine with the iOS 15 update on that. I wouldn't expect any problems with that. And Eric had a very fast Amazon delivery. They're getting quick. Sometimes I've had a few same-day deliveries here too, which is surprising because I don't live in a densely populated area. Roger P. wants to know, what is the front USB for? We're going to find out. I have a feeling you can plug in stuff for backup and whatnot. All right, if your Linkstation is located on the network, here, I'll show you what I'm looking at here. So let's go back to my screen here. If your Linkstation is located on the network through a proxy server, which it is not, we're going to click Next. You know what's funny? I owned one of the first NAS devices I bought years and years ago at my office, back when I was working for a living. We had bought a Buffalo NAS for the office, and this looks very similar to that. Frank Cromer says, glad I'm streaming today and needed a break. Yeah, I'm glad I'm streaming too. I'm going to be able to stick around for probably another 45 minutes to an hour. So around 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, I got a jet. All right, well, here we are on the main menu. And it looks like everything is already configured. You got some good statistics here. We've got our 2 drives. It's pulling down the smart data, it looks like. There you go. So you've got all the smart data on those 2 disks that are installed there. We have some USB options. So what does that do? Oh, I see. So if we had the drive installed, we can format it and do all that good stuff. We'll play around with that. What is RAID scanning? Oh, I see. It must be doing like that. The Synologies do that. What do they call that? RAID scrubbing. And here's our RAID array list. So it comes with an array already configured. So we didn't have to go. So if you watch any of my other streams, whenever you get like a Synology or a QNAP, because they don't come with drives, you have to configure all of it initially. But this one is already set up for us. Now for file sharing, it looks like it has a folder set up already. And it's called Share. So that is ready to go. Now, what is web access? Okay, so, yeah. So this is, thankfully, this is disabled by default. But what this would let you do is access your drive outside of your network. And what bugs me about this is that it uses the dreaded UPnP. And this is what gets a lot of people into trouble, because what this does is it pokes holes in your router. Now this is off by default, so that's good, but I'm going to play with it internally. I have UPnP disabled on my network. And you can set up your users, and we're also on SMB right now. That's on. And SMB is what Windows uses for connecting to drives and stuff. And it looks like there's one app. There's a DLNA server. So let's enable that. And this is what you would use for media. And so if you've, and I don't know if DLNA is used as much as it used to be. But it is an old standard, but most of the smart TVs support it. The Rokus work with it. So for the most part, if you've got a TV that has an Ethernet jack on it, DLNA is going to work with it. So that's a good thing. And that's on most NAS devices. Now, what's interesting, though, is you've got this whole screen of applications, but no place to add more. And I don't think it does more than what we've got here. Let me click on Management real quick. So you got UPS syncing, which is good. So what you can do is some UPS devices allow you to plug your NAS into it. And hang on one second, I got to answer a thing here. Okay, so it's the SSL. So you can put an SSL certificate on there, notifications. Yeah, this is pretty basic. But you know what? Like, this might be why you want this for basic, right? Backup. Does support Time Machine and direct copy. So let's see how this backup works. So this we'll have to play with a little bit. So we'll plug in one of our external devices and set up a backup job and see how this works. And there's also a cloud storage option. So I could sync this with 3 different services. So you can do Azure, OneDrive, or Dropbox, but no Google Drive. And you can see our setup here. And then management. So let's try to do an update again. See if there's any firmware updates. I would imagine there probably is one because we just got this. So we are connected, obviously, because we're on the website there. So we'll have to go and poke around with that a little bit. Okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, it's not much, but it's also a lot less expensive. All right. So now what I want to do is let's try to do a little speed test, if you will. So we're going to go and load up the Blackmagic disk speed test. And bear with me here for a second, folks. I'll tell you, everything I'm using today is all messed up. So I've got all these apps that are on my computer, but my Spotlight thing is not working properly. So hang on a second. Let's just do one thing here. All right. So we're going to bring up the Blackmagic disk speed test. And what I'm going to do before that is connect to this NAS. So if we go on my network here, and right now I'm kind of doing the default passwords, but if we go to our NAS here, I have to connect to it. And somehow it already knew my, that's weird, because I don't remember typing that in. So here's the share. And there's nothing in the directory because we have no files on it. But let's go in and do a quick little test here. So I'm going to select a target drive, which is that share, open. And there you go. So it's not, you know, it's not writing much faster than you would get on a gigabit one. But you see the reads are a lot quicker. There it goes. Yeah, it's having a little trouble. So you can definitely read from it at what I would expect for a 2.5 gigabit connection, but the writes are a little sluggish on this, at least for sequential. So there you go. Yeah, it kind of bursts a little bit and then it slows down. Although I wonder if it's still kind of building out the array. So I'll check on that in a minute. But it certainly reads quick enough. So, you know, it's reading at, you know, at the speed I would expect. So typically on a gigabit network, you're going to see 100 megabytes per second, give or take. But on a 2.5 gigabit network, it should be double and a half, which it is. So 263 is what I would expect. I would expect a little bit more out of the writes, which leads me to think that maybe it's a little bottlenecked on how it's handling the RAID array. It might be a software array that is slowing it down. And then we can go to the, actually no, it's, I mean, CPU, well, yeah, if you look at it here, and granted, we're probably taking up a little CPU by looking at it, but you know, as it's writing, so you know, let's try this. Let's take, hang on a second. Why don't we, I'm going to put the windows on top of each other. So let's see what the CPU does when it's writing. So it looks like it has like an ebb and a flow to it. So let me overlay this on top of the other window. Oops. All right, so keep an eye on it here. So you see how it's writing and the CPU spikes, right? And then when it stops writing, you'll see that CPU go back down. And it's not like a real-time thing, but no, I guess it's, yeah, it's not as strenuous. So it is straining more to write the data out than it is to read it. So there you go. Ronald Mervine is here on Amazon. Hello there. Yeah, I stream on Amazon all the time. I've been doing this for like almost 2 years now. And it's a great thing, because what I do is I kind of stream when I'm testing stuff. But there you go. So what else does this thing do? Not much. So we can look at, let's see, so applications, there's not much there. I guess what I could do is look for the firmware update. So let me go and look at that. And see if we can find the firmware update, because it didn't want to update automatically. If you all have questions, please keep asking, because there's not much to this one. This might be a quick review next week. Oops. Let's see, let me scroll down and missed a bunch of questions here. David Michael Piper is asking, oops, that was the one from before. Hi, Eric. Can you run a NVIDIA Shield TV Pro from it? Well, I guess if the question is, can you share files from this to an NVIDIA Shield Pro, the answer is yes. Because this is standard SMB, so it'll connect to anything that supports the SMB protocol, so that would definitely work. Way of the Lao, what's better, to build your own NAS or buy pre-built? And the answer is whatever you think is going to work best for you. I am someone who makes videos for a living, and I've talked about this before. I kind of like having something that's just pre-configured and ready to go. But I know a lot of people like to tinker and they want to build their own thing. So, you know, if you have the time, you can get exactly what you want if you build it from scratch, or you can buy something that's kind of pre-built here. Eden Kaiser on Amazon. Oh my gosh, I love the setup you have back there. Yeah, this is like all of my old stuff. Everything back there was something from my youth, which is pretty cool, isn't it? And most of it is actually from my youth. It's like the actual items, including my Coleco cartridges down there and my Timex Sinclair, all that good stuff. Let me take a few more questions here. Yeah, so that, and the computers behind me work. The Apple IIgs needs a new power supply. It blew out its filter cap, but that works fine. It's all souped up. The Mac needs the display capacitors dealt with. Yeah, no, all this stuff is my stuff, and it all works for the most part. Grayson would prefer NFS for Linux versus SMB. Yeah, it does not look like, I'll pull that screen back up again. It does not look as though you get, let me go back to the home page of that Buffalo thing. It does not look as though you get a choice of how it communicates on the network. It's SMB and FTP, and that's it. And then this web access, which I'm assuming is like a web-based thing. So I'm going to play with this and see. I don't think it's going to map your SMB out to the internet. So like I said, this is real basic transportation, and I think it's priced that way. And you know, it's funny that they haven't changed much since I started playing with them like 10 years ago. I'm sorry, I didn't even have the screen up for you. So these are your protocol options. So you have SMB, FTP, and web access. And then you can set up your users in here. And of course, you're probably going to want to change the admin username to something else, right? But you know what's good about this is that you hear all these horror stories about these NAS devices when people, you know, the QNAP, that whole QNAP incident, right? Because they're so easy to track down on the internet and exploit. This thing is just not, it's going to be invisible because unless you enable web access, it is off the grid. So if you're looking for basic storage on the network, this might do the trick, although the write speed is not where I want it to be. All right, let me go back and see if we can find the firmware update for it and see what we got there. So let's go to, so we got to find the support page for this sucker. This is the 720. But you know what though, you get it, you take it out of the box and it's working, right? All right, so let's go and look at, I bet you I can go back to that web page we were at initially, at d dot, let me do that. So we'll go to d.buffalojp. And you know what else I need to check, now that I think about it? When we were doing that speed test, I just want to make sure that my USB, yeah, so we were connecting with the USB. You know what I'm going to do just to be safe? Actually, no, that shouldn't matter. But let me try real quick. Sometimes the Wi-Fi takes over, but my Wi-Fi is not that fast on the read, so it should not have impacted anything. But I'm just going to try one more speed test just to make sure that it's doing what we thought it was doing. But I have a feeling, and I'll test this with Windows. On Windows, what's nice is that you can get, it'll give you that speed of a file transfer, so you can get a kind of a real-world approach. Yeah, it's behaving exactly like it did before. I'm just watching this real quick here. Yeah, so it reads much faster than it writes. So the read speed is about where I would expect the 2.5 gig NAS to be. The writes are you're not going to write to this any faster than a gigabit one. Frank Cromer says the YouTube award is new. Yes, actually the YouTube award, and then the one below that is my Amazon Live A-list trophy for the live streaming I do on Amazon. So that one's new too. So eventually we're going to fill it up with trophies. Although I don't know if the 1 million subscriber one's going to fit there, but I've got plenty of time to figure that out. Roger P. wants to know, do they make a 10 gigabit NAS? They do not. I think 2.5 gig is, I think that's the highest level they have right now. And there does not appear to be a firmware update. Let's see, I'm just looking through here. Okay, here's firmware. Yeah, it looks like there's a firmware from August 23rd, version 1.08, which I can't download. It doesn't let me download it. But let me take a look and see what version we are running on this thing, because it wasn't doing its automatic update. And this one, well, the fan just kicked on. You know, it's very quiet. If I click here, the Linkstation will beep. Oh, cool. Plays a little song. All right. Let's look, trying to see where the firmware version is. Oh, it's right here, 1.06. So there's a newer firmware available, but I cannot download it because I don't want to have to go and download their software to do that, because it's like right here, 1.08. Oh, I have to accept the agreement. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to download the firmware here. There it goes. Oh, it's a big file. So it's a 352 megabyte file. So we'll download that and see what we get there. So we'll force that firmware on there just to see if that does anything. Jassy is wondering, are there any? Yes, there are some out there. I have a TerraMaster with a 10 gig. I got to look at that one. I do have a QNAP. I'm very nervous about QNAP because of all the security issues they've had recently. Again, if you keep them off the internet and just lock them behind your firewall, you're fine. And it doesn't reduce any functionality, especially if you have a VPN. So yeah, I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for what's out there, because I'm very quickly transitioning to a multi-gig network. So I am hoping to get more speed, because right now my current NAS is only at 1 gigabit. So I'm trying to figure out a way to shoehorn my 2.5 gig adapter onto it. Ronald is wondering, very silly question, does this support SMB1? I'm looking at options for Windows 98, and I would be running this on a segregated network that ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I have a Windows 98 computer I can try it with. I doubt it, just because there's not much to configure on this, although what we could do is go and look at the settings for SMB, if there are any. So here, let's take a look at that. So we'll jump over to the file sharing, SMB. It says auto. I'd have to look at the specs on this. Oh yeah, okay, so yes, the answer here is it looks like yes. So it looks like the lower limit on auto is SMB1, but it supports up to SMB3. So yeah, it looks like it should work. And if I set that to manual, yeah. So I could even lock it in at only SMB1. So good question. AS wants to know, what's the CPU exactly? That's another good question. I am not sure. And you know what? There doesn't appear to be any SSH to even get into it. So my guess is on the lower end of the spectrum, support-wise or performance-wise, because it doesn't need more than that. But I will have to look into what that is also. All right, so I'm going to try to figure out what to do with this firmware here. Let's see what kind of file I get. README. Oh my goodness. All right, how to update the firmware. Connect the Linkstation and computer together to run the updater on the same network subnet. Oh wow, so you have to do this with their software. Like you can't just give it to it. But it looks like there's like a big, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff on here. All right, so let me go and download the Mac. So it doesn't look like it can update itself automatically. So that'll be another thing for my notes here. And I will say it was very quiet up until a few minutes ago, and then it started running the fan a little bit. It's not terribly loud, but it's definitely a little louder. All right, so I just downloaded the updater for the Mac. And let's try. See, I hate how I just don't like installing software. Recipe Bob is here, just got home. Welcome home. All right, so I'm loading this updater. It's got like 2 rings on it. I'm getting nervous. Grayson likes to build his own NASs. Yeah, I think it's really a matter of what kind of control you want and how much time you have, right? All right, so let's go over here and I'll show you what's going on. Okay, so now we're going to update the firmware. So it found the drive on the network and we're going to click update. So it looks like this is not something that you can update through its control panel, even though it has the option to do so. It looks like it has to be done this way, so I'll confirm that with them. Because you kind of want your NAS to update itself automatically, although this one I don't think is really designed to be exposed to the internet beyond that web-based control panel we just talked about. So you'd want a VPN that you can have on your network that allows you to connect to things and play with it. So now what it's doing is transferring the firmware from the computer. Roger P. wants to know, is it more affordable to make your own NAS or get a pre-built NAS? I guess it depends on performance. There is a premium associated with these NAS devices because they get updated, right? So especially with QNAP and Synology, there's always OS updates and whatnot going on, and so you're paying a bit of a premium up front for that. But I think you would definitely save money building your own. And this thing is probably going to reboot when it's done doing its thing. So let that run there. Mark Smith is wondering, what software do you need to build your own? So I would love to get some feedback from all of you, because there's a bunch of packages out there, and they're open source packages. They're all escaping me at the moment. Open source NAS. Let's see. We got. I'm just looking through here some of the options. I'm blanking on it right now for some reason. Open Media Vault is one that people like. There is another one. FreeNAS. FreeNAS is what I was thinking about. FreeNAS is one. Open Media Vault. And what I was playing around with, I haven't fully thought through the rest of this project yet, but I had a TrueNAS and FreeNAS. I had looked at, actually, I was running, what was I running? I was running, I believe, FreeNAS on a Docker on my Synology NAS. So it was like a NAS in a NAS. It's like whatever, meta, right? So you can run these things in Docker containers on your Synology or your QNAP, which I thought is pretty cool. And right now it's doing its reboot, and then we'll have the new firmware up there. I don't know if we're going to see any different features, though. So, yeah, this one's, I think for a home that just needs storage on the network, this is good for that. It's simple, and that's not a bad thing. I just wish the write performance was better, because the read performance is where I would expect it to be. Like I said, I typically get about 100 megabytes per second on my gigabit network. And when I'm at 2.5, I would expect, 150 megabytes per second more, which is about what this is getting on reads. But when I'm writing to it, it's not able to keep up. But let's see after the firmware is done here if that impacts anything. So we'll let that finish up. And now it's restarting. And this utility will be no longer needed because the firmware has been updated. But what I like about it is that it is very much what I remembered my Buffalo NAS from many years ago. And Ronald says, oh, it's Unraid is the other one. So here's from Amazon here. So Roger P says FreeNAS, AS likes Open Media Vault. Ronald likes TrueNAS and FreeNAS, but preferably likes Unraid. And then it's called NASception when you run a NAS within a NAS. I'll tell you what, I've been having a lot of fun playing with Docker. I haven't found like a killer app that I run in Docker yet, but there's a lot of neat stuff you can do with it. And I found a website the other day. It's on GitHub, and it's a list of all of this self-hosted software that you can find for your server or for your Docker server. It's pretty cool. Like all sorts of cool stuff. So the one I've been playing with, but I haven't yet figured out completely, is NAN. It's kind of a Zapier alternative. And the issues I'm having with it is that it doesn't have any kind of authentication to log in. That's the first problem with it. And then I'm struggling to figure out how to get it connected with all the things that I'm using Zapier for. But once I figure it out, I think I'm going to switch to that. Because my Synology is always running, so I figured, let's get some of these services that I'm paying for. If I can replicate them myself, I'd rather go that route. And what's nice about the Synology is that when it backs up, it just backs up everything. Docker settings, the containers, the data storage, all that just gets sucked right in. So, but if you have a Synology and you haven't played with Docker yet, take a look at it. It's really neat. Containers are cool. All right, what else we got here? We'll let this thing, it's still rebooting. Big firmware update. Michael Kidd is running everything in Docker, it looks like. Plex downloaders, Node-RED, Internet Monitor, Tesla Mate, What is all of that stuff? Node-RED. So Node-RED is a browser-based flow editor. Oh, cool. For wiring together hardware devices, APIs, and online services. This is kind of like N8N, isn't it? So I should play around with that a little bit. And what else we got here? So he's got Node-RED, Internet Monitor, Tesla Mate. I wonder what that is. Let's look that up. There's all sorts of cool stuff you can run on your server. A self-hosted data logger for your Tesla. Where has this been all my life? What does this do? So Tesla Mate, I like that idea. So what does it log? So what kind of data does Tesla Mate log? So I have a friend that's like really into all this data. Ooh, look at this. Into all this data analysis. So it's like, it looks like it's tracking energy usage. Oh, wow. That's cool. Oh my gosh, my friend, if Red Techie is on, he's going to love this. Ronald says, if I'm really into Docker, I would look into Portainer. Yes, I've heard of Portainer. Because that's the one thing that's been difficult for me is like how to update the containers. And you can do it a little bit easier through the Synology manager, but it's not intuitive because you have to like clear it and then reload it. Whatever, it's just a multi-step thing that there's not like an update function. I think Portainer is easier for that. Frank says I should check out Home Assistant. Node-RED is a great tool for configuring home automations in Home Assistant. HA is a big, my goodness. See, you guys are going to get me all into, I'm going to spend the whole weekend just messing with this stuff. Oh my goodness. I'm going to spend a lot of time on all these things. All right. It is still updating the firmware, by the way, so we are not done yet. But we're getting there. Sam Lazar says Plex support. It will not run Plex, but you can store Plex data on here and connect to it via SMB. Keith is wondering about 4K content. Yeah, it looks like the read speed from it is adequate. So we were getting, close to the 2.5 gigabit on the read, not on the write. So when you're copying your media over, it's going to copy it around the same speed as a gigabit, but it's reading much faster. So Michael says that Tesla Mate logs the energy in and out, the drive statistics, including near real-time energy, elevation charge, range, power in and out of the battery. That's very cool. So Michael, does it also keep track of how many miles you've driven on autopilot? Because that was something that people have been talking about on one of the forums that I follow. And I'm going to have to look into this Home Assistant, whatever that is. And yeah, so you cannot run Plex on this, and if you could, it would definitely not be able to do the transcoding. It's not a terribly fast processor. But you can store the files on here and read them with a Plex server that can do that. So I got to look into this Home Assistant. This looks interesting. Open source home automation that puts local control and privacy first. Wow. Oh yeah, this is going to be like one of those things. You can run it in a Docker, right? Okay, the firmware is updated. So let's go and take a look at the homepage and see what has changed. All right, so now we're logging back in. And here we are. So let's see if there's anything has changed. So let's see, any new applications? Nope, so the DLNA is all you're getting. Cloud storage is the same. It looks like everything is pretty much the same here. LVM. So it looks like there is an update server, but it's not connecting to it. So I'm going to have to ask them about that. Because this would be my preference would be that you go in and get your updates on the web thing, not through a software download. But you know what I'm going to try now, because now that we've done the firmware update, I wonder if it might deal with some of those performance issues we were having. So let's go back to our speed test here and see. I gotta connect to my, oops. Okay, so we're going to connect back here. Select that, hit start. So the speed, it's doing, yeah, it started going a little better, and yeah, see what happens? Like once you start really hitting it, it drops. And it's writing a 5 gig file, I believe is the file size. So you can see that it's reading a lot faster than it's writing. So you get like that burst, and then it drops off. But right now it's very quiet, like the fan is barely audible on it. And you can't hear the drives at all, they're really quiet. That might be why they chose those desktop drives, because they are a lot quieter perhaps than a NAS drive would be. Yeah, so I'm going to have to test this with Windows and see if we have the same result on a Windows computer. You know, just moving a file back and forth. But yeah, there you go. All right. So Frank says, Home Assistant just came out with their first controller called the Amber. I've been running mine on Odroid for a while. Yeah, now does Home Assistant work with like all the stuff that I use that connects with Google Home and the A Word? Or do I have to get something that's built for that? And Michael says, it looks like the new thing that was added here was LVM. It's a volume manager from Linux that lets you span multiple drives with logical volumes. So that's the new thing. And Michael says that is a deep rabbit hole. All right, I'm going to take a look at it. So I have no... yeah, this is going to be one of those things, isn't it? Magnetoman is here. Hello. Thank you for the kind words. Home Assistant is over 1,000 integrations. Brian's talking about... yeah, so... okay, so maybe I should look on the Mac and see if we have some issue with the Ethernet. This is like our problem we had the other day, right? Where we were having like network speed issues. So let's take a look and see if it's a jumbo frame issue. Now the switch that we're plugged into does not, it's a dumb switch. So yeah, I'm going to have to play around with this because my Ethernet, yeah, we're going to test this out with the Windows computer later because I have a little bit more control over that Ethernet. So it could be jumbo frames configured on the Mac side that's causing that. So we'll take a look at that. And Greg says that the Home Assistant, all right, so we'll have to play around with a little bit of that. And Frank says it works with everything, Google or the A Word. But it doesn't work with HomeKit, of course, because Apple doesn't like to share with anybody. Barney Boy is joining us from the Windy City. It's cool today. Yeah, it's starting to get cool here. It's been raining a little bit. So it's a little more humid today than usual. And Sam has a dumb Netgear switch. Yeah, this is a dumb QNAP switch. So this one's got the 10 and 2.5 on board. Because I got this in anticipation of my Gigabit Pro service getting upgraded in a few weeks. So free of charge, I'm getting an extra gigabit. It's like I haven't been able to make use of the 2 or whatever they already have now, but I'm not complaining. And another container that I should check out is DeepStack, AI classification of, ooh, that's cool. Oh my goodness. You guys are going to kill me here. All right, so I'm going to have to play around with all that stuff. But yeah, we got this thing set up here, and it works. There's not much to it. I'm going to dig into the manual a little bit and see if I'm missing anything. But I think it is what I thought it is, which is kind of basic transportation, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. What I'm curious about, it doesn't look like it added anything new beyond that LVM thing. And we got those 2 drives on there. The drives are super quiet. I bet you that's why they went with those drives. They're just not very noisy. So I can enable OneDrive here, and I guess it will sync with OneDrive. So that's one way to kind of enable a backup. Now, can we decide? what we back up. I'm going to have to put a bunch of files on here to start playing around with some of this stuff, so we'll get into that. All right, cool. We're going to play around with this a little bit more. But I got a handle on it. I mean, it's really, you know, if you're looking for something simple, this is simple. Like you get it out of the box, you plug it in, it's ready to go. There's no configuration. And I can see that being attractive for some people. The MTU size, by the way, is 1,500 bytes on this one. And I think that's what my Mac is configured to. So I'll play around a little bit more with this. I don't know if you can set a higher one. This doesn't look like you have that option. Yeah, so we'll mess around with this a little bit more. So yeah, very good. Well, I have to take off and head to a meeting in a few minutes. So I did want to get this thing set up and started because this is my next project. And it looks like it won't be much of a project because there's not much to demo on this. I'm just going to go back in and kind of connect with them and make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, looks pretty cool. So I will be back maybe tomorrow. But most definitely on Friday, because Friday I'm getting all my Apple stuff. Because I got to buy it like the rest of us, right? So I've got, here's what I've ordered. I was not planning to buy anything, but then I saw this stuff. So what did I get? I got an iPhone 13? Yeah, 13 Pro. And I wasn't going to get it, but the trade-in they offered on my current one was significant. So they're giving me $640 for my existing phone. So I don't know, is that half of what I paid for the old one? I don't know. So it's going to be under $500 to get the new one. And what I like about the new phone is that the camera will record in ProRes. And I am always recording B-roll footage on the phone. And I've got to transcode the video over to Final Cut. So it's not a big deal, but it's one of those things that adds a little bit to my workflow based on how I get the video to Jake to edit. So needless to say, the ProRes recording was attractive to me. So I got the 256 gigabyte iPhone 13 Pro. So that's coming tomorrow. I also got the iPad mini, the new one. And the reason I got it is because I wanted to review it. And I might just end up keeping it. Because I'm thinking about, I've already talked to my wife about this. I'm thinking about learning how to fly an airplane. So I know that a lot of people are using the iPad mini. They basically like either mount it on the window or they put it on their leg because they're connecting the iPad to their avionics. So the ForeFlight app is really popular and you can keep all your charts on it. So I'm thinking about it for that reason. But I like the size because I never use my iPad at night because it's too big. So I'm going to see if this mini is a better fit for the evening. Because I haven't been reading as much as I'd like to, and I want to start reading some more. So I got that. And then I also got like the entry-level iPad, because I review the entry-level iPad whenever they do something new. So those reviews always do pretty well, because I like to always look at the low end of the market. So we'll unbox all that stuff and boot it all up and get it all working and just kind of hang out with that. So that'll be Friday. Depending on when the stuff arrives, we'll probably look at doing it in the afternoon, like 2 or 3 o'clock on Friday, p.m. Eastern Time. So there you go. So we will have plenty to look at. And Ed Horn is here. Hello and goodbye. I'm taking off in a second. Danielle Jones says goodbye. Sam Lazar says I have a 10.4-inch, and yeah, I got one of those upstairs, which I haven't reviewed yet. I got to get to that one. And Frank says, check out 310 Pilot on YouTube for using iPad. Oh, okay. So you guys are keeping me busy here. So yeah, I'm going to call the, I know some people at the flight school there. Long story, but I have the ability to get access to, it takes a long time to work your way up to this, but there are, I have the ability to get access to twin engine aircraft to eventually learn how to fly. So I may as well take advantage of it if I have the ability to get into those, to get some hours. So it's kind of the plan, but it's going to take a while to get there. But the iPad mini looks cool. So yeah, and it looks like they made it like a mini iPad Air, right? It's got everything that the iPad Air's kind of got. And I know it's going to happen because my wife has been using her iPad mini for, I think I got it for her, I don't know, 5 years ago. And she loves that thing. And I know she's going to take it from me, so I'm going to end up with 2 of them. You'll see. So we'll see how it goes. He's got, so Michael Kidd's been telling me about all the different ways he's automated his RV. So he's got the U by Moen digital shower. It turns on extra water heating capacity when he needs to get his shower. That's awesome. Yeah, this is not good for me. Okay, so we'll start playing with that. Home automation. Roll your own home automation, the way it should be. So good stuff. All right, so we'll be back soon. I'm going to probably shoot the review of this tomorrow because I don't think I have much to do with it. It's pretty simple. I got to do the backup, show how that works. I got to figure out the syncing with OneDrive, but those are pretty easy things to do. And yeah, I'll just take a look at the manual and see what else I'm missing. But it seems to be a pretty easy thing. Good stuff. All right, so we will reconvene before you know it. All right, everybody. So thanks for tuning in today, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye-bye. Check, check. Check. Check, check. Bye-bye.